Okay, I think we'll get started now. Once again, welcome. My name is Doug Robertson, and today we are going to be talking about awards and graduation requirements set up in SchoolLogic. Tomorrow we will have a similar webinar, but dealing with SIRS, graduation requirements, and setup. This session today is going to be recorded and will be available on our community link on the web for you to download and to review after the session is over. Once again, I have everyone muted, and we're going to work on mute today. And any questions that you may have, if you could submit them to the help desk, then we can manage and make sure that everyone gets a chance to be responded to your questions. Okay, going forward. I'm going to be using SchoolLogic version 3.1.283 with database 332 today, which for all you SchoolLogic people out there, that should be the version that you are currently on. We're going to talk about the building blocks today of how we set up honor rolls, graduation types. I just got a message that we're not getting any audio. Okay, if everyone can open their chat box, and if you could list your name if you cannot hear me. Okay, I think we'll continue. If no one can see, or if no one can hear me, please send me a chat message saying that you cannot hear me. And once again, we're going to talk about the building blocks of building awards and graduation requirements. And the stuff that we're going to be covering is we're going to take a look at preferences. We're going to look at grade legends and how grade legends deal with honor rolls and graduation requirements. What kind of course types do we need in order to have the proper calculations take place? Where we're going to apply those course types dealing with courses, what it means when we have split requirements, allowing duplicate credits, and how does a grade legend affect, and how a grade legend is attached to a course. Then we'll talk about the actual course types menu option, and then we'll get into the meat of what we were talking about, being awards and graduation requirements, and then we'll talk about the graduation requirements that are year specific and how they are driven by what is defined within student demographics. In preferences, the two things that I want to talk about here is using variable credits, and in some jurisdictions they allow students to acquire half a credit at a certain point of the completion of the class, and doing so that can affect the credits that are being used for graduation requirements. The same thing being as if we move midterm grades to history, then that way those credits will also be used. So if I have a 1-credit course and I pass the first half of the course, then half a credit will go into history and therefore be used for graduation requirements. Grade legends. What is a grade legend? What does a grade legend do for me when it deals with honor rolls and graduation requirements? It deals mostly with honor rolls, and for those jurisdictions that have a letter grade score, then this is where we can have a lower range for each letter grade that we are awarding. So for example, my A+ here, anywhere from a 97.5 up to 100% will be awarded an A+ grade. Going across, the percent equivalent, and we will look at how this percent equivalent is going to be used further on in this presentation. you can define up to 4 different GPA calculations, and if you are on a 4-point scale, there can be different ways of having different grade points awarded for different types of scenarios, so that we can have a GPA 1, 2, or 3. Percent credit, how much of the credit of that course for the grade that's being awarded is going to be sent for the student to use for graduation requirements. Do I want to include this grade within the calculation of my average? And of course, down here where we have our F, the lower range is from 0 to 59.499. GPAs is zeros across the board, and mostly, and more importantly, we are going to be awarding 0% of the credit for the awarding of an F. Course types. First of all, you have to set the course types up in the lookup table. And what I will do is that I'm just going to go over to my application. I'm going to go to Setup, and I'm going to go to Lookup Tables. The lookup table I'm going to be looking at is the course type lookup table. And depending on your setup for your district, it could be either district-owned or it could be school-owned. Now, within each course type, we have all these different types or different course types defined that we can attach to courses. This is simply defining the first level of all our course types. And you must have course types for each subject area that you want to define for graduation requirements. On the courses form, there are 2 different tabs that we're going to look at, the Information tab and the Information 2 tab. I'm not going to be talking about all the different fields that are on the course form. I'm only going to talk about grade legend, low credit, high credit, allow duplicate credits, split credit and requirement areas, and of course in the Information 2 tab I'm going to talk about course types. And we're going to go to our application, and we're going to go to the course file. The fields that I'm talking about are down here where I'm attaching a grade legend to a course. Whether there's a low credit and a high credit. In some Canadian schools, they have one course called Phys Ed, but students can be awarded either 3 credits or 5 credits. Therefore, the low credit awarded for this course can be 3 or a high credit of 5. If you set the low credit and the high credit to be the exact same, then if you have variable credits awarded, then there's only 1 credit value that can be awarded. Allow duplicate credits. This is where we talk about if a student takes that Phys Ed course more than once. And in a lot of U.S. schools, they'll have one course number for Phys Ed, but students can take Phys Ed each year. For graduation requirements, do I want to allow the credit for that Phys Ed to be used more than once? The next field down is where we talk about the split credit and requirement area. And that means is that if I have 2 different course types awarded or assigned to a particular course, the order in which they are listed will define whether the credits are going to be awarded to that course type or the next course type. Splitting the credit, if I've already achieved the credit values needed for one course area, then I can use the credit value for this course in the second course area. And that's what it means by split credit in requirement area. On the Information 2 tab, we have the average weight, and this is talking about our averages and the calculation of averages. There's many different ways that we can have an average calculated. If we are going to have a course-weighted average, then you must put in the average weight for this particular course here. If I'm excluding a course from GPA, then this course will not be considered at all in any calculation for averages, which will affect, of course, the honor roll. Over on the right-hand side of the page, this is where we are assigning for this particular course the different course types that are going to be used for graduation requirements. For this particular course, all high school courses and the elective area. So there are two different areas where this course could contribute credit dealing with graduation requirements. And of course, this is the same screen that I was just showing you. And then the course types menu option is simply where I can have a different view of assigning course types, where I start with the course type and then I assign the different courses to this course type. Makes data entry very easy. If I edit this and I look at all the available courses, it will bring up all the courses I have not yet chosen to be included in all high school courses. That's why you see a shortened list here. Then we start talking about awards and graduation. The first example I want to talk about and that we'll show you is how to have an honor roll created. And then we'll go to the actual graduation requirements and how we can set up different types of graduation requirements depending on the needs of our district and or our school. Now, setting up an honor roll, there are many different kinds of honor rolls for different schools. There can be an A honor roll, there can be a B honor roll, and I've also encouraged schools that they could also set up what I call, and please excuse the verbiage here, a failing roll. In other words, set up an honor roll or set up a setup here that will identify those students who could be at risk as we go through the course of the year. In other words, give me a list of students who are failing. To get to that definition, we go to award and graduation requirements, and I'm going to click on my honor roll. Of course, we have to give it a name, and in these next fields here, how many courses do I want to use to calculate my honor roll? Well, I want to use all courses that I have defined and that a student can take, so I have between 1 and 99 courses that a student could have in order to use for the honor roll calculation. How many potential credits can be used for my honor roll calculation? I've got, again, a wide range where anywhere from 1 to 99 credits can be used from the potential credits of the courses that is being used in that calculation. The average grade must be between 55% and 100%. In other words, if a student attains less than 45%, they will not qualify for this honor roll. Now we can define even further and in more detail how we can drill down to an exact honor roll calculation. If I have duplicate courses, I want to look at the grade first before I look at the credit. And I want to list the credits from highest to lowest, and I want to list the grades from highest to lowest in the way that the honor roll is going to be using those courses. In using a calculation type or an average type, we can use a course bonus, course weighted, credit earned, credit weighted, quality points, or just a straight average. Now, as you saw, I showed you under the course file where we have a course weighted and the weighted value of that course. If it's credit weighted, it's going to be weighted towards the credit value of the course that is defined. Now, all those different calculations are dealt with in another workshop that I believe was offered a little while ago, and how do we get calculations. But for this particular example, I'm using a straight average. For my honor roll, do I want to use a GPA? Now, if that means I'm going to use a GPA, I must define which grade legend I'm going to be using in order to calculate my honor roll. If I use my high school letter grades grade legend, then I'm going to use that grade legend that are attached to those courses. Which value within that grade legend am I going to use? If you noticed, I have the percent equivalent, GPA, GPA 1, 2, or 3, so that depending on the GPA calculation that we have, I can have an honor roll based upon just a straight GPA. I can also have an honor roll based upon a GPA 1, which could have AP values for those courses that are tagged as having high school letter grades. So you can have many different types of calculations in order to calculate whether the student is eligible for the honor roll or not. How many decimal places do I want to have the calculation done? I've got 0 here, but again, if you have a grade legend that has values and that you have 2 decimal places, then I would suggest that you use 2 decimal places here as well. Using the school grade, that is where if I want to use historical grades or do I want to use the school grade, that is within current year. Disqualify students with any grade less than, and qualifying grade less than, we are going to leave them at 0 for now, and we're going to deal with those values when we get down to the detail. When I expand out my honor roll and I click on the area for the honor roll, for honor roll connections, we don't need to have anything set in the space above, because all we want to do is that we want to calculate who can be on an honor roll. How many potential credits must a student be enrolled in order to qualify for the honor roll? They must have between, in this example, 0 and 10 credits. What is their grade that they must have in order to qualify for this honor roll? Well, their average must be between 80 and 100% in order to qualify for this honor roll. Do I want to begin with all courses? Well, of course I do. Do I want to reallow used courses? For example, if I'm doing a calculation for a cum GPA honor roll, and if I've already used that course in history and the student is currently enrolled with that course, then that is going to be using that course again for the honor roll. If I'm taking a course twice in the same year, do I want to allow duplicate courses and still contribute to my honor roll? Over on the right-hand side, remember we were talking about those different course types. Now within the course types, for my honor roll, which course types do I want to include versus what course types do I want to exclude? Now a lot of schools in the U.S. will use lunch and study hall as actual classes and actual courses, but I don't want them to be even considered when calculating an honor roll, so I would set them up as a course type of no GPA or not used or whatever, and I would have them as excluded from my honor roll calculation. How many courses do I want to include? Well, I have from 1 to 999. How many credits? I'm not basing my honor roll on credits. I'm basing my honor roll on grade. So right now I must achieve a grade of 80% to 100%. If I set a cutoff, then the minimum grade must be 80%. What this means is that I could achieve an average between 80 and 100%, but if I have an 85% average, which technically would allow me to go on this honor roll, but if one of the classes that I got ended up with a 75 rather than the 80, I am disqualified from this honor roll. Once again, what kind of average do I want to have calculated for this honor roll? Whether I want to use a grade legend or not, and which grade legend value do I want to use. Now, through these different variables that you can use here, I can set up many different kinds of honor rolls, as I was suggesting, an A honor roll, principal's honor roll, and then that way you can include or exclude certain course types. You can have a core course honor roll. In other words, I want to have an honor roll just for my math, English, science, social. You can be very creative and you can be very descriptive here as to what kind of honor rolls that you can have. And these are just screenshots. And once again, this PowerPoint presentation will be part of what is going to be uploaded onto the community website. And that's why you're seeing duplicate screens here than what I'm showing you as well. Now let's go in and we can actually start setting up grad requirements. Grad requirements can be set up for different graduation years. What this means is, and I've seen in many jurisdictions where they have an incoming freshman class, and that incoming freshman class will need to have 30 credits in order to graduate at the end of their senior year. That is different to the seniors in my current year where they need only 30 credits to graduate that was defined from their freshman year, so that you can have different credit needs for different graduation years. Your grad requirements can be set with and or connectors, and you can have nested connectors, and again, this is something that I will describe as we get into the application. The graduation year is set in student, I don't want to go there. Going back into my application, in undergrades and awards and graduation requirements, I have my graduation requirements for 2014. That is a graduation year for 2014. Now, for my graduation requirement for 2014, I need it from 1 to 999 courses. I must have a minimum of 25 credits to however many credits I get awarded. Some jurisdictions set a maximum where a student could acquire more than the needed requirements, and they'll set that higher value there. But most places will set the high value as 999. Their average must be between 50 and 100%. And now if I have duplicate courses, I want to look at the credit values first rather than at the grade. And in the way that the courses are going to be used, I want to have the credits sorted from highest to lowest and the grade sorted from highest to lowest. Once again, we have the average type here of what average that I want to use in the calculation of my GPA. Once again, I also have the GPA checkbox here. Which grade legend am I going to use, which again is set back at the course level, and which legend value that I want to use out of that grade legend. How many decimal places do I want to use? And once again, do I want to use the school grade versus historical grades, or do I want to use all grades in the calculation of my grad requirement? And I'm going to use both current and past years. Disqualify any students with a grade less than 50%. Now that deals with any of the courses that are within the course type for my graduation requirements that are attached to each different area. I'm going to talk about this disqualify with qualifying grade less than when we look at a different screen. I'm going to go to my English area, and of course I have the area name, and now this order field can be, will be, should be important. The order in which you want to have the credits awarded will depend on what order you have them listed here going down the right-hand panel. For example, if I have English, Science, Math, elective, and if I allow split requirements, split credits in requirement areas, if I have satisfied my English credit and I want my credits awarded for English first, and if I have electives down at the bottom, then if I have extra credits for my English area, they can be awarded to credit or to electives. If I did not specify an order here, and if I had electives up at the top, then it would award the credits to electives first and English second. But I don't want that to happen. I want to have my English credits awarded to English first and then on to electives if I have extra credits. Excuse me. The AND connector or connector, what that can be used for is that if I have two different sets of English type courses that are going to be used for my English requirement area. For example, if I have English 9, English 10, English 11, English 12 as one set of English courses that can contribute to my English requirement, I can have them grouped as a particular set of courses within the English grad type course type. I can then associate a left bracket and a right bracket to that group of English courses. I can then set an OR connector with a second set of English courses, such as English 9A, English 10A, English 11A, English 12A, with a closed bracket so that between the two sets of courses to satisfy my English credit, I can have one set of English courses or a second English set of courses. With my example here, I have just one set of English courses that I'm going to use for my English requirement. For all the courses that I'm considering, they must have a minimum of 1 credit to a maximum of 8 credits. The grade, in order to qualify for the credits, is between 50 and 100%. This is meant especially for those schools that are only using numeric grades, in other words, a 100-point scale, and that anything below a 50% will not be awarded credit. Begin with all courses, of course. Reallow used courses, and again, this is the same thing as with the honor roll, that if I want to use courses from history plus current year, then if I've already used the course from history, I can also use that course from current year. Allowing duplicate courses simply states that if I have the same course more than once in the same year, in other words, if I took phys ed in first semester and I took phys ed in second semester, I'm going to allow those two instances to award credit towards my phys ed area. In here, what are going to be my included course types? And obviously for my English area, I'm going to have my English grad requirement area. And once again, just like we did with honor rolls, we can exclude certain course types from being used for graduation requirements. For each requirement area, what course count must I have? I must have at least one course up to a maximum of 4 courses that will be used towards my English area. I must have as well at least 1 credit up to a maximum of 4 credits used towards my English area. My minimum grade, and again for those schools that are on a 100-point scale, the minimum grade must be 50%, because if I get awarded a 49%, credit will not be issued. Once again, just as similarly as with average type, we're doing a straight average, but you have all the different calculations for averages listed here, so that you can have many different types of calculations in calculating honor rolls and whether credit is awarded for a grad requirement. What grade legend am I going to use? And of course, those are going to be the courses that have those grade legends attached to it. And what legend value I'm going to use. I would then go through and I would set up for each requirement area the credit values needed, what's the minimum grade, and what course types I'm going to include and or exclude. Graduation requirements by year. Depending on what you have set for the grad year for the student on the student demographic page will depend on whether that year is specified to allow a certain graduation requirement, which is then listed under the menu option under grades, graduation requirements. I can attach my graduation requirements for 2014 to the 2014 graduation year, but I've also attached it to 15 and to 16. If there are different credit values or different total number of credits that a student is required to achieve for a certain graduation requirement, then you would set those different graduation requirements as listed here. As you see, I have graduation requirements for 2014. When the credits needed to graduate are changing, you need to set a different graduation requirement setup so that it can be specific to the graduation year of that student. And going back, these are all the years. Now in my particular database here, I have students that have attached a grad year of anywhere from 1975 up to 7601. Those are going to be old students. But as you can see, I've got the 3 here for 14, 15, and 16. Now, there's also different reports. There is the graduation requirement report, where I can have a detail or a summary, and I can choose through my group manager whether I want all my students, or as usual with our group man, we can choose a very specific set of students. And we can even drill down to a subset of students. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to preview this. And as you can see, the graduation requirement detail will give me the student name, the credits required, credits completed, in progress, and credits needed. It'll also list the different course areas with the requirements, what's in progress, what's needed, and that the requirement is not met. And it'll go down through each and every student as we go through for each requirement area. The other report that you can print is the awards and graduation requirements. And you can do a summary list. You can do a detail by area. In other words, I'm going to have all my English subjects first, or all my English subjects grouped together, all my science subjects grouped together, or I can have a detail by year. And by having a detail by year, that means that I'll have all my requirements for 2014, 2013, and so on, for each year that the student is in school. Do I want to have the summary or not? Which students do I want to include? Matching students, non-matching students, or all students? Do I want to have my students ranked? And depending on where you are and what you're doing, may or may not be necessary for you. 1 second. Through GoTo. Hey, I'm almost done. I just got a message that apparently a lot of people cannot hear me. We are looking into our audio problem. But again, this is all going to be recorded. So with the reports, you can set your parameters of how you want the report printed. This is a calculation-intensive report. So to save time, I'm not going to have this printed out as an example. Well, I've recorded it, so.
Okay, so we're going to just apply the
Yep.
Thanks, John.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is setting up graduation requirements and honor rolls. Now, I've just been informed that we've had major audio problems in that GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar did not provide the audio. Again, this has been recorded, and therefore you can download this from the community site. Thank you very much, and have a good day.